Let's get Senator Weiler on the show. Senator, appreciate you joining the program. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure. How much have you heard about this bill? Like, how much have you heard about? And the funny thing is, I think most people refer to it as a pornography ban. Like, how much have you heard about this bill?
Well, before 2 days ago, I'd heard almost nothing. I wasn't lobbied at all during the legislative session. The session ended 60 days ago today. So I first heard about it 2 days ago when Pornhub notified its users that they were blocking Utah. And of course, the bill just says they have to take a commercially reasonable attempt, make a commercially reasonable attempt to age verify.
And I think, my issue with this, and we've talked about this at length on the show. My issue is, and specifically as a conservative and a Republican, I would ask you this. This feels like big government. This feels like this bill is reaching into my living room, monitoring what I'm watching, and telling me how I can watch and how I can access the material if I choose to, pornography, adult websites, whatever it might be. I feel like this is big government. And I ask you as a Republican, is it an issue to have, what feels like a law that is big government? Am I wrong about that? Is that not what this bill is?
Well, I understand that perspective, but I don't think it's any more big government than showing your ID to purchase a 6-pack of Budweiser at 7-Eleven. The internet was born, but it wasn't born yesterday. So cigars, vaping products, gambling, direct wine shipments are all sold on the internet, and everyone understands you can't sell any of those things to an 11-year-old girl in Topeka. So this idea of age verification already exists. I believe that Pornhub is kind of playing dumb, like, oh, duh, we don't know how to do this. Of course they know how to do it. Utah's law that went into effect today is word for word the same as Louisiana's law. Pornhub has complied with Louisiana's law, but its clicks have gone down 80%. So what they've done is they've created a new strategy in Utah, and they're saying we can't comply with it. It's bogus, it's a sham, and people are being played by a billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. But when I say big government, and I think this is really important, the thing I struggle with here is that I am, whether it's Pornhub or my favorite show, Chicago PD, it doesn't matter what I want to watch. And it's none of your business what I want to watch. That's really where where I'm champing at the bit on this bill, is that I feel like, number one, if I want to watch a website, I should be able to watch it. Number two, the idea that I have to log my ID and then I am going to trust an organization that by this very piece of legislation, you tell me not to trust because it's bad for me, that I'm going to trust them with my ID. Do you see where I could be a little puzzled by that? Because I want my freedoms, and I want to be able to protect myself, which you're telling me not to go to this website. But if I want to, go ahead and give them my ID.
Well, I think that you raised some valid points. So quite frankly, I don't want to know what you or any other adult is watching in their spare time. And the bill doesn't require that. All the bill says, so a lot of people don't realize this. I hope you know this. It's illegal in all 50 states, and it has been during my entire lifetime, for an adult to show hardcore pornography to a child. That's already illegal in all 50 states. Pornhub does that every day with no accountability, and nobody's enforcing that law. So all our law says is they need to take a reasonable effort to age verify. No one said that you have to give Pornhub your driver's license. That's one way to do it. But there are third-party vendors on the internet that already do this. And there's opportunities to do it digitally. But if Pornhub said, we don't want driver's license, but we want a credit card number, or we want your driver's license number, or we want anything, we want your date of birth, or we want your, the last 4 digits of social security number. But instead, they just say, are you over 18? Yes or no. A 7-year-old, which is, by the way, the average age of most young boys' first exposure to hardcore streaming sex videos, 7 and 8 years old, a 7 or 8-year-old can push yes. So that's not a commercially reasonable effort. But nothing in this bill says we want to monitor what anybody's looking at. But if you want to, if you walked into an adult bookstore and wanted to buy something and you're 14, they can't sell it to you. But Pornhub apparently can. And that's the problem here.
Right. But the other issue is that it's behind my closed doors. And look, I totally understand. I am, again, I am a guy who believes that pornography is the great destroyer of men. I do not believe that children should have access to it. But specifically on that, and I do want you to know, I have read this bill top to bottom multiple times. I would not dare have you on the show and not have read the bill.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I want you to know that. I think the thing that really stands out to me, though, Senator, is I struggle with this idea that a senator is telling me, hey, I don't care what you watch in your house. I really don't care. Well, you do, because I now have to give up my right to digest material my way, any way that I want. That's all over with now. And the other thing here that I think really bothers me, especially being passionate about this state, at some point we have to hold parents accountable. You decided to have children. What those children do, whether it's access to firearms in our homes, drugs or alcohol in our home, or pornography, we have to make people be better parents instead of restricting those of us that want to live free lives and are good parents. We have to hold people accountable for the actions that they do not take to protect their children, in my opinion.
And I totally agree with you that this is a parental responsibility, and so is alcohol. And yet we're all okay with showing our ID at 7-Eleven. That's why I use that example to buy cigarettes or to buy
But that's
alcohol.
a national thing.
No,
That's a national thing. And if we were all really serious about alcohol, we'd have far stricter DUI legislation in this country.
Well,
Alcohol's not, in my opinion, with all due respect, alcohol is not the example here. This is you coming into my living room, I feel like. And when I say you, proverbial, the government, coming into my living room and telling me, hey, you're not going to watch pornography on this site or whatever the site is. And from what the legislation says, I believe it's all adult material on a website.
Well, I disagree with you, because we have direct wine shipments that are ordered on the internet.
Yeah.
And again, an 11-year-old in Topeka, Kansas can't order wine. And so alcohol is an apt example, because we're not banning alcohol. We're banning it for minors. Minors can't buy alcohol. We're not banning pornography. We're saying that minors can't consume it.
Are you for, and I think this is a really important question. Are you for big government? Are you for freedom? Because this issue with freedom for me is a big deal. And we talk about it a lot on the show. I think we all talk about, hey, we're the United States of America, freedom. We don't have freedom. And that's kind of what this feels like to me, whether it's this pornography bill or, there's just so many things in our state, whether it's, gambling's a very interesting one to me. I don't understand why we want to talk about being a free state where we are conservative and we live our lifestyle, but you can't drink you can't drink full flowered alcohol. You can't gamble on sports. You can't watch pornography. Are we a state of freedoms?
Well, let me ask you, are you for a 9-year-old boy watching 3 men simultaneously rape a woman while they're pulling her hair, spitting in her face,
Senator?
And choking her? No, because that's what we're talking about here.
No, we're not.
That's what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about here.
That's
exactly
way over the top. That's spectacular.
It's not
Nobody
over the top.
is for that.
That's happening every day.
I don't disagree with you.
Every day.
I don't disagree with you. And I think
I'm not okay
but
with
if
that.
we were serious about stopping that, I'd be standing right next to you right now saying, hey, what are we going to do to stop that? We're not serious about stopping that because we don't take measures to stop that. We're not serious about stopping DUIs because we're not going to go far enough to stop that.
But I've taken a measure to try to stop that, and you're accusing me of being anti-freedom.
But I don't think what this bill does not accomplish that. This bill, because let's be very honest about it. If kids want access to pornography, there's enough technology with the way that we do not police our children, the way that we build kids' computers and gaming and Xbox, and there's VPNs and all kinds of technology.
Yes.
Kids know how to use technology. Having raised a teenager and having had this conversation 1,000 times about the detrimental impact of drugs, alcohol, sex, and pornography, I'm a big believer in what you're telling me is the reason behind this bill. I don't believe that this bill accomplishes what you had hoped that it would. And it's my issue again. If we want kids to understand what the detrimental impact of pornography is, talk to them about the detrimental impact of pornography. But we're not allowed to do that.
Well, no, I agree with talking to your kids. I've raised 4 teenagers, but all laws, in a sense, are aspirational. We pass speed limit laws knowing that some people will speed. We say that you have to be 18 or 21 to buy alcohol or cigarettes, knowing that kids are still going to get them. That doesn't mean we don't pass the laws.
Yes,
it means
correct.
that, I mean, there is a certain aspirational aspect to all laws, including this one. But a 9-year-old doesn't know how to access a VPN as much as a 17-year-old does. And if I can
Correct.
if I can buy those kids 3 or 4 more years, excuse me, of innocence, I'll take it.
Well, that's something that resonates with me massively. I wish that innocence goes just like that. I mean, the blink of an eye, it's gone. I agree with you on that. Let me ask you real quick. Economically, how are we as a state doing economically? You know, one of the things I'm really passionate about right now is real estate. I'm somebody that lives. Your co-sponsor is my rep. I live in South Jordan. I live in Daybreak. And one of the things that I really struggle with is the economics that we are currently dealing with in this state, whether that is real estate, as a small business owner, I own my own business. Like, it's really difficult to do business right now. In your eyes from the Senate, how do you feel like the economics in the state are?
I think that the economics are good. We were just voted the best managed state for the 16th year in a row by the American Legislative Exchange Council. I personally believe we're headed into a recession if we're not already in one. Interest rates went up again today. Fortunately, our unemployment rate is low. I'm very optimistic. I'm bullish on Utah's future. I just voted, again this year to cut, corporate and personal income taxes. That's the 3rd tax cut in the last 4 years. And I think that'll have a good effect on our economy moving forward.
Yeah, and I really, my biggest concern is obviously with our emerging tech sector here in Utah, which has been so good for our state. I really, my wife works at a massive tech company, and I worry about those layoffs, and I worry about the impact on our fellow Utahns being able to provide for their kids so that our homes aren't empty while our kids are at home by themselves over the summer or in downtime when we talk about bills like this. And I think I'm excited to hear you say that you're enthusiastic. But hey, I know that this is the first time we've met. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate you standing and delivering, Senator. Nice to meet you. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. There you go. Really appreciate Senator Weiler coming on the show. It's not an easy topic. I think most of you guys know when we talk politics on the show or we discuss our beliefs, like, I am a small government guy.
Right.
I am absolutely positively a believer that this bill, in my opinion, and now having talked to the senator, I wholeheartedly believe this was a well-intended bill. I don't think it accomplishes the goal.
Well, and I think it really pushes the envelope on sensitivity for guys like yourself and guys like myself. I mean, hell, I would agree with you. I mean, I don't want the government reaching into my house any more than it already does. And I'm glad you pressed them a little bit on the whole, hey, you got to put your ID in at 7-Eleven. I mean, that's just not, to me, yeah, well, it's the same kind of concept, right? Like, hey, you got to give them your ID to gain access to this item or that item. It's a totally different setup. And I think, the real thing for me is like, it's one of these bills where I would agree it was well-intended, but I also think that the senator isn't silly, right? He's a smart guy. He gets it. And I just think it's damn near impossible to sit there and say, hey, this bill is going to stop a 7-year-old from viewing it. Now, I will say, I do think that having there be a hurdle or a block or a wall, if you will, yes, absolutely. I think it would prevent more kids from viewing the content. As he said, hey, it's going to buy him a couple more years. Yes, I mean, absolutely, I agree with that. It adds in yet another step.
And I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. Absolutely. But at the same time, I just think, again, love the senator, but unfortunately for him, there's no good answer to, hey, the government's reaching behind my door. They're reaching into my house. And I think, when you take this thing here locally with the TikTok thing and just some, I just feel like it's becoming more and more, acceptable to write a bill and then pass it into law. That's like, hey, this is an issue. Okay, well, we're going to try and do something to stop that issue, even though it doesn't really solve the issue.
And by the way, once you write a bill, do you know how hard it is to unwind the watch, dude? Like,
oh, it is, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Once it's a law, it's almost impossible. And I think the parenting portion of that conversation is massively important.
Vital.
We have got to do a better job raising our kids. Yeah. And Jake and I, and Jake will attest to this, and I know we've talked about it on the show. We had multiple conversations about sex, dating, women, how to treat women, how to talk to women. We had multiple conversations about pornography. Like, I am a big believer that you have to have open and honest discussions with your children. And if you're going to give them a cell phone when they are 10 years old, you better understand what they're going to do with it. Yeah. And you had better put limits and locks on it. And then you had better check behind them. It's something that I did on a routine basis. I read my kid's text messages. I knew who he was talking to. I paid AT&T more money to understand who he was talking to and when, and for how long, and how much data was going out the door. Like, you have to do that stuff, because if you don't do that stuff, you are not even giving them a chance to make the right choice. That's what I struggle with. And again, I don't believe that the Republican Party that I romanticized as a teenager, I don't believe it will ever return. I think our country has changed. But I am never going to be for the government watching from my windows to make sure that I'm not looking at pornography, or that I'm not, getting like Maui wine. We had to cancel our membership to Maui Wine because you're not allowed to have wine sent to your home in Utah. Yeah,
and I think that question you asked him about, like, hey, like, are we really free in the state of Utah? I mean, I think it's a legitimate thing, because I agree. Hey, if you're of the LDS faith, great, knock yourself out. But that doesn't mean that I need to be the LDS faith. If you don't drink and I do, great, I'm going to knock myself the hell out if I want to. I should be able to, in this state, put money down on the internet in this state on whatever game I want to.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I think I think it's tough. Let's get some of your comments in here. Greg Hawkins says, for example, I agree with Monty that the ID law is stupid, but for totally different reasons. I think the ID law doesn't work, and I don't think it will work.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you walk into a store with your mom and have her buy the wine, and then she gives it to you. Easy as that. You're not really solving the problem if the parent doesn't parent, and that is the issue. And I feel like on some of these issues, it really just is a thing like, hey, parent did a bad job. There's nothing we can do about that.
Well, and it's why I said, like, you're asking me to trust a pornography company to not store my information. Because the bill reads, for those of you who haven't seen this bill, it's not a pornography ban, by the way. It is an age verification on websites that supply certain illicit content.
Yeah.
The rule is, the law states you cannot store this. You have to be responsible for getting rid of my ID when I enter it into your system. So you're telling me to trust a porn company with my ID, but not trust them with their content. And again, they're dangerous and bad, but go ahead and give me your credit card number or your passport or your ID. Why would I do that?
It's the same concept. They're not a porn company. They're a data collection company that happens to distribute pornography, right? Like, it's important to know that distinction. And I just think again, all this comes back to, I agree with you. It comes back to parents have to make a decision, right? And if you're not going to be a good parent, or if you're not going to do the job, then don't have a kid, right? Like, that's that. I just think that we don't think in those terms as adults.
Ken Williams, the problem is when we give up our rights, we never get them back. Government means less rights. I don't disagree with that at all. At all. Jeremy Callahan says, common sense is that sometimes the better answer isn't on the side you belong to.
Agreed.
Correct.
Agreed.
Correct. I agree with that. 801 West Valley says vote him out. I'm not ready to vote him out. I think Todd is a senator that his intentions are usually good, looking at his record and understanding how the way he's voted. I just don't think this is a good piece of legislation. I really don't. Greg Hawkins says, Ken Williams, yep, there's no form of government that works to keep people in power. They all work to keep people from power. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. The better answer is very subjective, too. I agree. Kurt Myers, Monty, thanks for good not holding back on your questioning. Yeah, I'm not the guy who has you on and be like, oh, okay, great, thanks.
But you notice, and again, again, we tell you on this show, truth in sports talk, right? But really, it's the truth in talk, right? Where the senator goes, hey, like, he goes on this whole, like, over the top thing. Are you in favor of the women being raped or whatever? Like, and it's like, dude, like, nobody's saying that, and it doesn't need to go that far. And you can die on that hill and say it happens every day. I'm sure there's a statistic to back that up, and I'm really sorry that happens. But that's not what we're talking about right now.
And this bill doesn't prevent that.
Yeah, and this bill does not prevent that.
Yeah. 513 Bearcat says won't get support from either party. We'll see. The Great Firewall of Utah. Truth.
That's what I mean, dude. Are we talking about the what is it called? The Iron Curtain or whatever for alcohol, I think it's called here in Utah, where it used to be, they don't do it now, but it used to be that they would like pull a curtain back when they put the alcohol in your drink or whatever. Like, it's crazy, dude.
It is. I agree with that. Cody Strickland, I agree with the fact that Pornhub and other need better security to make sure it's the adults watching it versus a 10-year-old have to input our IDs is over the limit. Well, and the other issue is, again, this is not going to stop kids from watching pornography. It's just not. The technology is too much. We empower our kids with technology far too early in their lives.
Yeah.
I think that you have to really look at ways to protect our kids from cellular technology, from giving away their identities too early in life. I mean, that's what we need to be talking about. Can we all please call it the E-Zion curtain? My
you know
apologies.
what I mean? You know what I mean?
Matt Hart, how many 7-year-olds access their parents' guns? Also, though, and accidentally shoot a sibling, all of this comes down to parents being better.
Well, and that was the other thing that I thought was really interesting. And again, I'm not trying to be negative on the senator, but I think it's a little short-sighted to not admit that, hey, like, we don't do much about DUI in this country, right? Like, we don't do much about driving drunk and, like, that whole conversation.
And if we were serious about it, we just don't... We're not serious. That's the thing. We're not serious.
You notice it's real acceptable nowadays to put your ID into things, right? Hey, yeah, enter your information. Notice no one's talking about taking your ID away if you violate the law a number of times. You notice that? Anybody notice that everyone's trying to collect data now? And no one's
I can't remember. A website emailed me today and said you have to change your password because your information is on the dark web. I don't remember who that was. But Airbnb said we put in a password reset because your information appears on the dark web.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many data breaches that you're never getting away from it. Mike Phillips, I wonder if the senator would be okay with sites requiring a digital ID to buy ammunition.
I mean, it's a reasonable question, though, and I'm not a big believer in like outlandish questions or going way over the top with things, but I think it's a fair point. Like if it starts with pornography, if we're going to use the guise of pornography to be entering IDs, how far does it go?
And we're also like, and I almost asked him about abortion, but I just didn't think it was apropos. But I just don't think that we're for freedoms in this country. Well, I don't think we are. Yeah. And the thing that worries me, especially in Utah, is that information is going to be stored. You cannot tell me that data farmers are going to just throw that information out.
With how many views they have, dude?
I don't buy that at all. And I think the other thing that worries me is what happens when it's like, oh, well, I can't get a mortgage because you watch porn 7 times this month.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that. McKinley Cutler, Pornhub is not the only site, and it's almost impossible to enforce legislation like this for foreign-based companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't... The law is very general as to what sites need to supply... You need to supply an ID on. It's not a few. It's a lot. See second comment. Okay. Kurt Myers, stay the hell out of my pocket and out of my bedroom.
That's what I mean, dude.
The government, damn near ruined my business. You never give the government anything because, believe me, it starts in the home. It does. It does. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Mike M says, good on you, Monty. Debating with politicians isn't the easiest task.
Yeah, my guy doesn't care.